Hi, this is Dr. Ron Modern with Modern Institute for Mind Body Wellness, and this is your weekly words of wellness. Now, this week, what I would like to look at is my book, Little Harvey, the Hypno-Roo Goes Walkabout. Now, you may say, well, why are we looking at that in our weekly words of wellness? We have a Facebook page for Little Harvey on there. Why not cover it there? Well, it's because what we want to look at this week is using some of the cognitive behavioral skills and combining those with classical conditioning to achieve certain effects. And those not only work for children, but they also work for you. So you can use the same skills that we teach children in the Little Harvey book to work for yourself. Now, what we want to look at is simply this week how to help children calm themselves down and maybe even prepare for bedtime. They're getting ready to go to bed, maybe in a heightened sort of state. You need to get them to calm down. So we can teach them to use something like diaphragmatic breathing. Now, remember that when we do diaphragmatic breathing, what we're really after there is the vagal nerve stimulation of that vagus nerve. That 10th cranial nerve runs out of the brain, connects all the major organs in the body, okay? And when we stimulate that vagus nerve, what we do is we cause the release of certain neurotransmitters and hormones in the brain, specifically serotonin, melatonin, and endorphins. Okay, so what we're really trying to cause the release of those neurotransmitters and hormones, which help us to calm down. Remember that serotonins, these are like your Prozac type drugs. Melatonins, these are your Ambien type drugs, help us to sleep and what have you. The endorphins, these are your morphine type drugs. Those can certainly chill us out when those are released into the brain. So we want to use the diaphragmatic breathing to cause the release of those hormones. Now, if we look at this in classical conditioning, okay, what we're going to use in conjunction with the unconditioned stimulus, which is the diaphragmatic breathing, and the unconditioned response, which is the release of those hormones in the body, we're going to add a neutral stimulus. Now, if you remember Pavlov and his dogs, right? Unconditioned stimulus was the food, unconditioned response was the dogs would salivate. He added a neutral stimulus in there, which was the bell. Okay, so every time before he feed him, he would ring a bell. The dogs would begin to salivate. So what you came up with from there, I know this is sort of technical, but we want to go through it. What you came up with was the conditioned stimulus, which then became the bell, and the conditioned response, which was salivation in response to the bell. Now we want to use the same thing with the diaphragmatic breathing, and what we're going to do, like we said, the unconditioned stimulus is the diaphragmatic breathing. As we do the diaphragmatic breathing, automatically we cause the release of those neurotransmitters and hormones in the brain, and that's going to help us to relax. Okay, so unconditioned response is the release of those hormones and relaxation. The neutral stimulus that we're going to add now is we're going to simply take the thumb and middle finger of the left hand, and we're just going to bring those together. So as we use the Hypno rubric from Little Harvey, okay, the Hypno rubric is simply breathe in through the nose and count to 4, breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more. Okay, that's all it is. That's used, if you read the Little Harvey book, you'll see we use that quite a bit in all of our stuff. So that's very ubiquitous throughout the skills that we're using. But as we do that breathing, breathe in through the nose and count to 4. Simply have the child or yourself bring that thumb and middle finger of the left hand together and just slightly squeeze them. And then breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more. And as they breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more, just simply allow those fingers to open up. And that's it. Okay. Now remember, the unconditioned stimulus is the breathing. The unconditioned response is the release of those hormones and relaxation. Okay. We had a neutral stimulus, which is simply touching those thumb and middle finger together. And as we do this over time, and any time we're trying to make behavioral change, it is important that we are consistent with this. You can't just do it every once in a while and expect to receive any results from it. It's not going to work. We have to do this daily, preferably several times per day. All right. So especially with children, if they are having a hard time, they wake up in the morning, very excited and what have you, need to get them to calm down, we can use this. Maybe sometimes they're in the middle of the day, if they have a nap time, you can use this prior to the nap time to help them to go to sleep. And then in the evening, they may, maybe their bedtime, they're all excited about that. Not about the bedtime, they're excited at night about something else, and you need to get them calmed down so that they can go to bed and go to sleep. Then you can use this as well. So 3 times a day, every single day. Okay. Once again, that consistency is important when we're trying to generate a conditioned response on things. So you have to use it every day. If you can use it more than 1 time a day, it's great, and you have to use it for a length of time. Can't expect it's something to see results in this in a week. Okay. Now you may see some results, but for this to take, you want to do it for a while. And there's no reason that you can't do it. I mean, hopefully you're using the little Harvey book, you're using those cognitive behavioral skills, and that becomes part of a lifestyle. Once again, something you're teaching your children to do all the time, not just when they have problems. If the only time that I use the cognitive behavioral skills is when I have problems, probably not going to work very well. So I want a wellness lifestyle. I want to promote that to my children. I want to promote that in myself. So we use some modeling there as we go along as well. Maybe some social learning theory, Bandura and what have you. So model using this as well. And then we're going to help the children. But once again, we have to use this consistently over a period of time. So what we end up with is the unconditioned stimulus then being simply bringing that thumb and forefinger together, squeezing them, and then letting them go. And the conditioned response on that is the relaxation, is the release of those hormones and the relaxation that follows. So what we've done, we've combined the effects of the diaphragmatic breathing, which is the calmness, with the original neutral stimulus, which then becomes the conditioned stimulus, which is bringing that thumb and forefinger together and holding that, squeezing it, and then letting it open up. And that produces the same effect as the breathing, which is that calmness, the release of those hormones, those neurotransmitters in the brain that help us to calm down. So a lot of technical stuff there that's really unimportant, but what we want to do is to do it. Okay. So and another thing you can do is, as you're reading this to your children, okay, as you're using this with your children, reciting that Hypno-Roo, right? As you're getting them to breathe, saying breathe in through the nose and count to 4, breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more. So that produces, this is sort of a tactile stimulus, right? Then you're also using an auditory stimulus. Okay, so if you find yourself in a situation where your child is very agitated or something and they don't want to do the skill, they don't want to do that, you simply repeating that, breathe in through the nose and count to 4, breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more, breathe in through the nose and count to 4, breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more, is automatically going to have an effect on them, okay, whether they want it to or not. That's the beauty of classical conditioning, right? Combining that Hypno-Roo with the tactile stimulus that we're adding there in order to create the response of the calmness that comes from the vagal nerve stimulation. So this is what we can use. Okay, once again, we find this find the Hypno-Roo, how to do diaphragmatic breathing, how to teach that to kids, and little Harvey, the Hypno-Roo. And remember that you can use this yourself, right? You can use those same things with yourself. The key to having this work, however, is consistency, using it day in and day out. And once again, this is because you are trying to not only to change behavior, but to change behavior in a way that creates a wellness lifestyle. Now, we also teach the diaphragmatic breathing and go into it a little more specifically in my book, Living Well, Guide to Cognitive Behavioral Skills Exercises. We have a whole section on that. We do have the tactile trigger in there. We do use an auditory trigger as well in there. Not the Hypno-Roo in the more adult book, okay? But I sort of like that Hypno-Roo. So I find myself saying it to myself sometimes. Breathe in through the nose and count to 4. Breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more. It sort of helps me calm down there. So you can use that one, or you can use the one that we have in the Living Well book. But for little Harvey, the Hypno-Roo, once again, one of the things we teach in there is that diaphragmatic breathing. And tip of the week is combine that diaphragmatic breathing with the Hypno-Roo with the tactile trigger. So breathing in through the nose and count to 4. As you recite that, the child breathes in through the nose, brings that thumb and forefinger together, presses them together slightly, breathe out through the mouth and count 8 more. The child simply lets them go, lets them open up again naturally like that. So as they do the breathing, that causes the release of those serotonins, melatonins, and endorphins in the brain. It helps them calm down. Over time, practicing this consistently, we no longer have to use the rubric. The child simply has to do the tactile trigger, bring that thumb and forefinger together, press them together, and open it up, and that will generate the same relaxation response as the diaphragmatic breathing. So this is the skill that we want to look at this week. Like I said, you can practice this yourself. If you have questions on how you might practice it in your specific situation, be sure to give us a call, send us an email, respond to us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Modern Institute, or facebook.com/Little Harvey, the Hypno-Roo. We're on there as well. So this has been Dr. Ron Modern for Modern Institute for Mind, Body, Wellness. Be sure to visit our website at www.moderninstitute.com. Thank you.